I want to welcome you back to the Manage to Win podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Habitly.com. That's where you learn the habits of highly successful people. Now, success is what you define it. You want to become a better leader? Do you want to set goals and achieve them better? Do you want to run meetings more effectively? Do you want to avoid conflict or resolve conflict? I mean, there's a lot of things there for you to learn. Habitly.com is a great way for you or with your teams or new employees to learn the soft skills that many of us have not been trained or not trained well. Check it out, Habitly.com. Today's episode is with Carey Smith. He is the founder of Big Ass Fans, which he sold for $500 million. And now he's doing unorthodox ventures, which basically is, if you ever talked with a VC or private equity person, a lot of times they're bankers or lawyers. They don't really understand business. Carey's team understands business. So they're getting not only invested financially, but they invest their talent to help companies grow. He's got a great story. He walks it through it, tells some things that are great tips for all of us. Let's dive in. Carey, I'm really excited to have you on the show, honored to have you on the show. You built a company from scratch, Big Ass Fans, and now you're doing unorthodox ventures. But with Big Ass Fans, why don't we start there? What led you to start that business? I mean, it's kind of funny because we've had fans for I don't know how long, but nobody thought of the big gargantuan ones like you did.
Well, actually, we've had fans for about 120, 130 years. And I'm saying the motorized fans. Obviously, prior to that, we had hand fans. What was interesting, I guess, where it got started was prior to Big Ass Fans. I had another company, and that company we were interested in providing comfort, typically cooling for large industrial facilities, because in the States, there's an awful lot, especially in the South, there were an awful lot of manufacturing plants and warehouses that have no ancillary cooling. And so it's very, very hot. And if they had any internal heat, it was even worse. And so I was always very interested in and knowledgeable as relates human physiology, especially as relates heat, and always very interested in anything that could alleviate the heat conditions within a facility, and especially large industrial facilities. And so the fans, the large fans, I don't know, it's just right there in front of us. I wrote a lot when I was when I had my previous company, which was a roof cooling company, which is about as primitive a technology as you could possibly get. And a not very successful one, because there's nothing like trying to explain radiant heat and evaporation of water that turns most people off fairly quickly, even engineers. But I wrote an awful lot of articles concerning the systems that we use to keep buildings cool. And consequently, I read a lot of trade journals. Now, this was way back in the time where it wasn't online. This was all paper. If you can imagine, you might remember.
Yeah, I got the gray hair. I remember. Yeah.
But so I read a lot of these things, and one day I came across an advertisement, and it was just this big fan, or it looked like a fan. It was actually not. It was a guy standing next to this monstrous fan on the ground, and I thought, holy cow! Now there's an idea. I promptly lost that ad, so I couldn't even call these people. But I was fortunate enough they were fortunate. I was fortunate enough that they ran the ad twice. They only ran it twice. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, that's a great idea. I'd love to handle the global sales and marketing for you." And they had been in business for a couple of years, and they had sold 17 of these things. And actually, they didn't really sell them; they kind of loaned them. And one of the first things they asked me to do was to see if I could collect money from these 17 people. I wasn't able to. They just sent them all back. It was terrible. But we made a deal, and I started a company, and all we had the exclusive rights to market and sell the fans. And I also had a buyout related to that. And so after a couple of years, I met the requirements and I bought the IP for the big fans. But it was an obvious market because, one, I knew the market. I mean, I knew everybody in the market, and in industrial, the maintenance guys, the maintenance supervisors, VPs. And I knew that this would solve that problem, or a problem that they had. So we were able to get it going, and it was fairly successful, though not as successful in the beginning as I thought it would be. And maybe, though I actually don't believe this, the reason was because we were using the name that was suggested by the original owners, and that was HVLS fans, which stands for high volume, low speed fans, which actually is a very good description of what they are. They're very large. They're 20 feet in diameter, 24 feet in diameter, and with a very, very small, relatively small motor that drove the fan. So the motors were at that time between a horse and a half. We actually over the period of 20 years moved it up. I think we might have had a 3 horsepower motor, but I'm not sure we did. Might have just been 2. But anyway, very, very economical way to move air in very, very large spaces, because keep in mind that most of the spaces that we were employed were, on the small side, maybe 50,000 square feet, on the large side, several millions of square feet. And so it only made sense. It was like a no-brainer. But as I said, we had HVLS as a name. And it was funny because when we started, it really was bootstrapped, and we had very few people. Yeah. And we'd have potential customers call us on the phone, and we'd say HVLS Fan Company, and there'd always be a pause. I was like, "Are you those guys that make the big ass fans?" "Oh yeah, that's who we are." And so it didn't take us long to change the name of the company from HVLS to Big Ass Fans, which was funny as it could be because it was a very good description. And we had Fanny, who was our ass, our donkey that we had as a mascot, which belonged to a friend of ours. I had not had much experience with farm animals, and I learned quite a bit about that particular farm animal. They don't keep themselves very clean. It took us a while to get him brushed up enough so that we could take pictures of him. But we had a lot of pushback from a lot of people because, that it sounds, I don't know, it sounds it's not proper, or it doesn't seem proper to some people. But we always said, well, look, in the Bible, the word ass is used 46 times, so give me a break. And
that's right. There you go. And today it'd be nothing.
Yeah, no, nothing at all. And but the thing about it, what was funny about it, was the people we were selling to, our customers, which I think is the primary thing. They had the same sense of humor, I guess, that I had, and they thought it was hilarious. And they thought that the more complaints that came in, because we were very vocal about the complaints. Oh my God, this is horrible. And we broadcast them every chance we got. And our customers and our would-be customers, they got the biggest kick out of this. And I used to get letters and postcards all the time that said, these people that are, I went to church last Sunday and I'm not offended at all. And I think this is great and yada, yada. And that was 95% of the correspondence that we got. And so it was a very small percentage of the people that used, and these people write horrible things sometimes. And you can always tell where it was going when they actually called you on the phone, because they would call you on the phone occasionally, that the people that didn't like the name. Yeah. And they were always looking. I mean, I would always be very nice and gracious because I knew what was coming. You could tell what was coming. And they would always go in the same place. And it took them a while to get there. But before the end of the conversation, they started cursing me. And it never failed that they lost their cool and just got really angry. It was kind of funny. Maybe that's not really fair, but
well, no, I think it's very common that people who are judgmental have double standards. And
yeah, no,
it just comes out, and it's unfortunate that so many of them are trying to follow Christ, but their behaviors, they apparently still have some work to do, and
yeah, some of these
they have the gift of correction.
Yeah, they had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. But, this actually brings something up. As you talked about talking to customers, I read something in Lauren Feldman's 21 Hats thing that you actually would call every customer after a sale just to kind of confirm satisfaction, thoughts, ideas, whatever. Talk to me about that, because that sounds like it was a burden, but it also sounds like it might have been a gold mine to help you really understand how to be the best you could be.
No, well, we always used to tell people, we did, and we waited. We would sell the fans and wait several weeks, because, I mean, people had to install them. If we were installing them, we knew when they were installed. But if we didn't, then, we had to wait a few weeks and assume they were. And we would tell the people, and I had people that did just this. This was their job. They would tell them, look, I'm calling you. You don't need to waste any time telling me how great the fans are, because I already know that. And that doesn't help me at all. That doesn't help at all. And what we're interested in is what could we do better? I mean, and from the packaging to the instructions, anything involved. Even I used to say that even if the installers were playing hacky sack out in the parking lot and you didn't appreciate that, we want to hear that, and because that's the only thing that we had to get better, and all we wanted to do was be the absolute best. Because my feeling about this is you're dealing with people that you don't know, that really don't know you, and you're taking money from them, and to me that was a big deal. And we owed it to those people, because they believed us, they believed in us. We owed it to those people to do the absolute best job that we could possibly do. And so it was an implicit contract that we had with our customers. And it also gave us we changed so many times, and normally the changes involved for a long time instructions, because in the beginning we had instructions written in English, and so they weren't complicated. You could follow them, but you had to follow it. We realized over a period of time that more and more people, some of them didn't speak English, and more people, they just didn't read the instructions. And so we made them, in the main, they were very pictorial. And then we put them on everything. I didn't do this. I wish I'd done this because it would have been funny, because we sent out a lot of T-shirts, as you can imagine, with big ass fans on them and things like that. Very popular items. But to have the instructions out to hang the fan on the T-shirt, but to have it so that they were written so that if you pulled your T-shirt up in front of them, you could read them. So they would be upside down. And but we because the problem was people would lose the instructions, and these fans were, I mean, gosh, they weigh several hundreds of pounds, and they're hanging 30 feet above other people's heads, and you have to be a little bit careful. And so the material that we use, the grade of bolt, I mean, all of the safety features, you had to make sure that those were done properly. We wanted to make sure they were done properly, and so we wanted to make sure that there were 3 or 4 sets of instructions. And additionally, what we did as well is we started putting everything together. At one time, we were welding parts of the fan that we finally decided we could make, one piece for the frames. We tried to simplify everything, but in the simplifications to make it safer.
And did you do all your manufacturing in the U.S.?
Yeah, we did. We were in Lexington, Kentucky, and we had 350,000 square feet of manufacturing there. We did manufacturing of one of our fans in Malaysia. We had a plant in Malaysia, and that was for the eastern part of the world. And Australia. Australia was a very good market for us. But yeah, we did everything ourselves. All of the salespeople were employed by the company. We didn't use distributors or agents. We actually didn't use, I can't say we didn't. We just didn't use very much in terms of contracting. For example, with marketing, we had our own marketing department. We did everything ourselves, which was interesting. It's more expensive, I guess, in the short run, but it made us. It was very easy for us to change direction, and I don't know. I think it worked out in the main. And again, it's very from an owner's perspective. It was very nice to come into the plant or plants in the morning and realize that all of these people that you were involved with, all of these people, that you were seeing right there in front of you. It was sort of cool.
Yeah, and that was a journey. You took the company to and then sold it for $500 million. Is that right?
Yeah.
Was that a goal that you had early on, or was that when did that come in, or what led you to sell when you were you obviously had tremendous success and it was fulfilling for you?
Well, I'd done it by the time we sold it, 19 years, and even really good things. After 19 years, you start going, what the heck surely there's something other than this. And it's sort of mundane, but I was in a meeting, as you will be in meetings. And it was one of those meetings where it was like, I was just fed up and with the people. And I had my COO sitting by me. And after everybody had left the room, I said, if somebody to give me $400 million for this, I'd walk away from it. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, I'd do it. And then I left the room. But then I came back and I said, wait a minute, for $500 million, I'd walk away from it. And that's as much thinking as went into it, which is terrible. That's not good. That's not the way you should do these things. Yeah. But my COO was a General Electric guy that had been involved with M&A, and that's not what he was doing for me, or for the company. But he got him thinking, and he started talking to people, and it took on a life of its own. But honest to gosh, it was funny because I never took it seriously. But we had all of these PE people, which if you ever read anything I wrote, I make fun of these people all the time. And over the period that I owned the company, we must have had, they would always come in and they would always say the same things. And it was always a big joke. because they take themselves very seriously because they think they know something. Well, they do know something. They know something about money and finance. But I didn't take it seriously for the longest time. And I was hesitant to tell my wife, who had been involved in the business years before, about it, because I knew she would say, yeah, big, it's never going to happen. You're never going to do that. And sure enough, when I told her, she told me to take a hike. And I didn't mention it to her. And it until the end when we actually signed the deal. And then, even then, she said, well, is the check in the bank? And I said, well, no, I just signed it. Well, I'm not in, there's many things that can happen. And actually, there was a lot of things at the end that made it. I mean, these guys, they're a different bunch of, it's a different bunch of people. They aren't business people. They are finance people. And they don't look at things the way you and I look at things. I mean, to them, it's all money. And you're thinking about business culture and about people having a good time and all the things we did at the company. And they don't know. That's a waste of money. That's not the way they look at things. It's a very dry, deadly, dull business, I think. But anyway, and they did various things like say, well, we looked at the numbers in the last quarter. They're not what we thought they would be. And so we're going to revise our bid. And I told them, you can imagine, you don't know me, but I allows you to imagine what I said. It was very to the point.
Yeah.
And I told them that if that's what it was, then I was totally uninterested and they could take it and I didn't need to talk to them ever again. And which I think makes a good point when you're selling a business or when you're doing anything. I was really ambivalent about it. One way, it didn't matter to me, honest to God, at that point. And I could keep doing what I was doing or I could sell it. I didn't care. And I think that sends a signal whenever you're negotiating. If you're in that position, that's a position you want to be in, because if you care, and I think that they were accustomed to people that imagine, oh my God, I'm going to have all this money and I'm going to do all these wonderful things. And then when they threaten to like walk away or to pay you 50 million less, which is a big number, then people are going to go, oh no, I mean, okay, I understand, I'll take it, but I wasn't going to do that because it didn't matter to me, and so consequently, I got what I asked for. But I think that's
great. And then what led you to do the unorthodox ventures that you're doing now? Talk to us about what you're doing and why you started this.
Well, I'm not ready to, I wasn't ready to stop working. I can't imagine. And I used to think people that were my age now and older that were in business, they were just totally unimaginative people because they couldn't do anything else. And yet you get to that stage and you're going, well, what the heck? This is what I like to do. This is what I want to do. And at the end with the fan company, the PE group, as they are wont to do, they did cut various departments. And one of them was R&D, because what do you need R&D for if you're running a manufacturing company? I can't even imagine. And I said, oh, that's fabulous. I'll take them. I'll start another company. And so I took those people who were I had a lot of smart people, but they were at the top of the smart people. Let me put it that way. And very imaginative. And there were some other people that came along too. We had a lot of engineers, a lot of people that were marketing, sales, and so forth. And we just started another company. And honest to gosh, we called it venture capital, but I had no idea. I mean, I knew what that was, but I don't, that's as much as I knew about it. I could define venture and capital, and that was it. And so that's what we did. And when we started, we did a lot of silly things. We wanted to, we tried growing shrimp. One of the guys went to shrimp school, the university, and we learned
University of
enough.
Shrimp.
What's that?
The University of Shrimp. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
well, no, we were lucky. We were in Kentucky, and right down the road from us was Kentucky State University, and that's something they actually have courses in it. They grow a lot of shrimp, and so we thought, oh my God, we can grow shrimp year round. We can charge a premium, but shrimp aren't that. They're not all that interested in staying alive. I mean, the first opportunity you give a shrimp to remove him or herself from this mortal coil, they're going to do it. And it took us a while to figure that one out. And then we thought what was interesting was sake. We did a lot of different things in the beginning. It had nothing to do with venture capital, really, even though that's what we said we were doing. But we finally figured out that, well, we should probably be doing this venture capital thing. And because I think what we brought to the party was a little bit different. And what that was because we were operators, we'd actually run a company, and I'm not a finance guy at all. And I mean, I can count money, but that's about where it ends. We started looking around and calling people and suggesting that we invest, but we were only really interested in investing in companies where we could actually make a difference with what they were doing, because we know how to start a business, we know how to set up sales structures, marketing channels. We have an engineering department of engineers, and so we know how to iterate and design. So we kind of know how to build a business. And a lot of these people that we talk to, and a lot of them younger people, they might have a good idea, or they might have the capacity to lead, or let me say lead. I'll give them lead. That's being generous, but that they can lead a company. They really didn't know any of the ins and outs. I mean, what do you do the first day, the second day? What do you do about that? What are these patents? How does that work? How do I establish myself, in Singapore? How do I do this? How do I do that? And so forth. And so we invest, but we typically only invest where we can actually be of value. And I think we've been able to do that, and I think it differentiates us for most of the VC or the capital that's out there, because most of these guys, and I didn't have to change my spiel at all, because I still make fun of bankers and finance guys and lawyers, and that's what we do all the time, because they're typically the ones behind the VCs, and they really, I can't, they don't know what the heck they're doing. 9/10 of the time, they really don't. And it's just because there's a lot of money out there. And I think because interest rates have been really, really low for a long time, that they're able to function at all. And I mean, the sales job for them really is getting their limited partners to invest, because they imagine that they're going to make them a lot of money. And then the VCs have a fiduciary responsibility to invest that money. Well, they don't know anything. And so they just throw money at deals. And sometimes they hit it, and a lot of times they don't.
Yeah, I remember Zig Ziglar said the word deal was a 4-letter word. So he always encouraged people to not use that word. But you think about what you're doing. Are you doing mainly working with companies that are products, or are you working with service businesses or technology companies? What's kind of your favorite? Because you come from the product side.
Yeah, we're really more product people, not so much service people. Service is very difficult because it's difficult business, and it's difficult to scale the service business. And a lot of the people that get into that, I sympathize with them, but it's hard, and there's not a lot of money there. I mean, you can invest a lot of time and money, and you should probably be doing something else. I mean, unless you're like Howard Schultz, I guess, and you go, oh, that's the way to do it. But most of the time, it doesn't work like that. And so we do typically products, medical products. We do like hardware. We do everything that we do has a software component, just because that's the way things work today. I mean, you can take advantage of that and make a better product. We did with the fan company. A lot of that was, we had a lot of software engineers there as well. So we're sort of eclectic. I mean, we've invested in food, though, or consumer products, though we don't really do that anymore. That's kind of what we thought we were interested in the beginning, but that is everybody can do. You can go in and boil an egg, and now you can have, hardboiledeggs.com, and you come to us with a plan. It's like, give me a break. But it's too easy to get into food and too easy to fail. So we don't.
Yeah, do you have a favorite story of one of the companies you invested in, as far as where they were when they came to you and where they are today?
Well, there's bad stories, but I'm not going to tell you any of those. I mean, there's always stories where they had a great idea and it completely collapsed. One of them collapsed because it was a husband and wife, and they got divorced, and that was the end of that. That's silly, but that's early. That was early stuff. I think that, we're working with. I tell you what we do that I think is interesting is we are working with several companies from Europe. And actually helping them establish themselves in the States. And so we invest in the company, and part of that investment, sometimes all of that investment, is directed towards them expanding into the U.S. And Europeans, and I may have thought this in the past, I don't know, but they're really quite provincial, and they're wonderful people, but they're not as worldly as some people might think. And so they have a tendency to, if they build a company, they're always thinking about, well, I've got this company, I'm in France, it's a $20 million company. I mean, we're doing fine. This is what we want to do. Why would I want to think about the States? And there's a lot of them like that are relatively small companies. And we have talked to, not all of them, but we have talked to some of these companies and invested in them where they say, yes, the biggest market, as far as they're concerned, the biggest market in the world is in the States. But to them, it's this massive, who knows what the heck is going on in that market. And we're able to help them to work within that in terms of getting all of they typically have CE, which is a European designation, but help them get what amounts to UL to set up. They all want to go to Brooklyn, and it's like, wait a minute. I mean, Brooklyn's great. I love it, but you can't set up a manufacturing plant in Brooklyn. I just don't think you want to do that. Or they want to go to California, and it's like, oh, you definitely don't want to do that. California doesn't want you if you're manufacturing anything. And so to situate them, and we're kind of lucky because we're in Austin, Texas, which is sort of a free range, but not necessarily for everybody or for every company. We have one company that we're working with that is situating itself in Boston for the U.S. office, but then that's a med tech, that's medical technology, and so that makes some sense.
Yeah.
But to help these people actually find employees, find physical space, just to get everything organized. And that comes with, if we invest, that's what we do. And the reason we do it is not because we're like super duper great people. It's that I invested in something. I want to make sure you succeed, and so I'm going to help you do that. And I think that the people that we work with recognize that, and so we're able to work together. So it's very interesting, and I tell my wife occasionally, at least once a week, that I'm sure glad I got out of the fan company, because this is much more interesting. And it is more interesting because when you're building a company, no matter what or the way I did it, is that's all I thought about it. I mean, I was monomaniacal. I mean, that was it. That was all there was. And you get out into the world and you go, holy cow, this is sort of cool. And you meet a lot of intelligent people, and that are creative and have great ideas. We do a lot of work. For example, the first place we went was Israel. Israel is like a totally massively cool place, and it's they're very focused on business, or a lot of them. I mean, the people that I deal with are very focused on business, and very interesting, very aggressive, smart. It's a great place, but we have a number of investments that are in Israel. So
yeah, I love the direction you're going. I'm curious, Carey, what have you observed, either in yourself or other leaders that you've worked with, kind of as we move towards a close here, as kind of the tipping point that really helped? That was a habit they learned as a leader, process they followed, something they did that really helped them break through and be the best that they can be?
Well, I don't know that I can answer all of that. I will tell you that I think it's important to be curious, and I think curiosity is a driver. And when we're looking for people to work with us, we're always looking for people that are curious, because if you're not curious, then you might as, I mean, I don't know what you do. I don't know where that goes. I think empathy. You have to empathize, not only with the people with whom you're working. You have to empathize, or be able to empathize with your customer. And you have to understand, which is sometimes harder than it seems, and you have to really think about it, is exactly what is it that the customer is asking for. And I mean, what do they actually need? And sometimes it's not what they say. I mean, obviously part of it is what they tell you, but the other part of it is the milieu that they're operating in. I mean, their environment, and you have to understand that, I think. And then I think that my mother used to tell me that, you're not that special. And she loved me and I loved her, but I think that's a good point, which is, at the end of the day, you're not that special, and you're special to certain people, but beyond that, no. And so you have to realize that. Well, I think you have to realize you're not that special, and so that not everybody's going to listen to you. Not everybody's going to do what you imagine they should be doing. Not imagine that you're like more intelligent than anybody else, because God knows you're not. Our chances are you're not. I mean, no matter what. So I think that all of those things, and I also think if you're going to be a leader, you have to have a vision, and you have to focus on that, and you have to be able to translate that to other people. And that's where you have to empathize with them, and you have to put yourself, you all have to, in my mind, you have to be on an equal level I always had, and probably to my detriment, fairly flat organizations, because organizations, if I could keep it flat forever, I would do that. Obviously, you can't, and which I don't know how many times I have to do it to realize that won't work. But I want everybody to know what we're doing, and everybody is, we're operating as peers. That works to a certain point. You get to a certain number of people, and then it becomes incumbent upon the leader to say, okay, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do it, because that's the only way you can operate. I mean, you have to recognize where you want to go. You have to recognize where they want to go, and you have to go. You have to go there. You can't do anything but. So it's incumbent upon the leader to lead, to be able to see over the horizon, and I think that's what you're looking for. I think with leaders, or with well, not so much managers. But
well, I think those are great tips, and I really appreciate you being on the show. I love hearing your journey. I'd love to talk to you for hours more about, what you're doing, where you've been, and what your thoughts are in America. But we only have so much time, and you have no time because you're busy with all your ventures. So, but I hope we connect separately. But thank you so much, Carey, for taking time to be on the show today. I
really, really appreciate it, David. It was very nice. I like your background too.
Yeah, I wish I had this office, quite frankly, instead of it being virtual. I love it too. I love the mix of the brick and the glass, and
it reminds me of we stayed one time in a place in New York, and it was relatively narrow. That looks like it's about 25 feet, but and looking out onto the street, very nice, very nice.
That's great. And if people want to learn more about what you're doing at Unorthodox Ventures, where do they go?
Well, they can go to the website. It's the easiest thing to do, but you have to be able to spell unorthodox and ventures and then put the .com behind it. And you'd be surprised. We have a little picture. Somebody gave us a picture and it was done in, and they gave it to us as a gift, but they misspelled unorthodox. They used A's instead of O's, which was interesting.
Yeah.
And so, so you have to keep that straight. But other than that, you ought to be able to find us.
Fabulous. Well, thanks again. I wish you the best. And if I'm ever blessed with another conversation with you, I'm sure I'd love to have it. So hope you have tremendous success.
Oh, thank you very much. The same to you.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you like the episode with Carey, please subscribe, leave us a comment, rating, any feedback. We love feedback. Just like you heard Carey say, we love to get your feedback on how we can improve. And don't forget our sponsor, Habitly.com, where you can learn some great habits. Take your strengths, make them stronger. Take your weaknesses, make them so they don't hurt you. Habitly.com. Again, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. We got more great guests coming.